Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Frank Cottle, who is the founder and chairman of Alliance Business Centers Network. Welcome to the program, Frank.
Well, thank you.
Hey, well, give us a little bit about your background and what led you to get into this industry.
Oh, gosh. That goes back many years. We started, I originally came out of the marine industry, out of the yachting industry in the late 60s and early 70s, mid-70s. We started in the serviced office industry, really as a property company in 1979. Our concept at that time was to build our own buildings in the path of progress, land banking theory. And we were looking for a tenant, if you will, a way to build a building that would generate the most amount of revenue with the smallest amount of brick and mortar. And it turned out to be these funny things called executive suites. So we built a series of buildings across the southwestern U.S. between 1980 and 1990. And plugged business centers, or executive suites as they were called at that time, into those buildings, and then successfully sold that portfolio in 1990. We continued on through the industry more conventionally, leasing space between 90 and 2000, wherein myself and some other partners put together and built about 195 centers across North America, and successfully sold that portfolio in 2000.
That's quite a mission that you've been on, and that's pretty exciting because that was when I hear you describe that, I feel like like saying forward-thinking progress. You were thinking a few steps ahead of the industry. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, we were sure trying to. It's a fast-moving industry, so there's a lot of great leaders in it. A lot of very creative people, but we have been fortunate to usually be a couple of years ahead. And I think that there's an old saying from a general that says, I really don't care what the enemy is doing. I know where I'm going, and I'll be there 3 days before the enemy.
Yeah.
And it's really that kind of concept. Know your game, play the game straight ahead, and just keep moving. Keep moving, never slow down.
That's... although I know you would agree that you still have to keep that little sideways glance at the competitor to see if they're gaining on you or if you need to do another little leapfrog. But what are you seeing in the industry right now as far as, I think we can probably say that small business owners are typically the ones that you're looking at that would need these executive suites, but otherwise people with 30, 40 employees are looking at other options. Is that correct?
Well, yes, although it's very interesting. One of the largest client groups in our industry on a global basis is actually government. And
because they're mobile?
The government is trying right now, is seeking, if you can believe this based on our taxes we all pay, they're actually looking at ways to reduce the cost of officing. And they're also looking very carefully at where the people that work for government are, what their commute times look like, and how they can place the office more conveniently and more closely to the working group. So government is looking at it. That's the same case is true. If I were to break our industry down in its customer base, it would be about 15 to 20% government, 15 to 20 or 25% large corporate users, the global Fortune 1000, let's say. About that same 20% of professionals, legal, accounting, financial services professionals. About 20% of entrepreneurial companies, but branch offices, sales offices of mid-sized companies. And then about 20% of pure entrepreneurs, startups. So the perception that our industry is really focused on startups and just entrepreneurs is really a misconception because it's become very stabilized. And while we thought we were pretty radical at first, we're actually quite mainstream, it turns out.
Neat. So where do you see the industry going with the virtual offices in this respect? Is there a difference between a virtual office and a co-working space?
Yes. The serviced office, we're all part of what we would define as the serviced office industry. And that means all providers that combine people, place, and technology and deliver that combination of services through a simple service agreement as opposed to an employment contract or a lease. So if that's the industry, you can liken it to the automotive industry somewhat. What's the automotive industry requirement? A chassis, a motor, and a steering wheel. Everybody that's got one of those and moves people with it, part of the automotive industry. Yep. But in that industry, like in ours, there's different sectors or brand. So in our industry, you would say that there is the business center sector, and that would be exemplified by companies like Regis or ourselves or Premier Business Centers here in the U.S. And the brand promise would be people, place, and technology combined with professional image and services. The co-working sector would have that same people, place, and technology, but the brand promise would be a little bit different. The brand promise would be business growth through a collaborative community. Mm-hmm. And you would add incubators to that then and say, well, what's an incubator? Well, people, place, and technology, or could be a business center or a co-working center, but add mentoring.
Yep.
And then an accelerator would add access to capital. A logistics center would add transportation formats. A media center would be focused on that industry. So just like you have SUVs and sports cars, et cetera, in our industry, we have these different brand sectors. And a virtual office really is a product structure inside of all of those brand sectors. And what a virtual office is doing is saying, well, some people need the people and the technology. They need the support service and the technology, but they only need the place occasionally. Mm-hmm. Or they might need a whole bunch of different places. They need a network of offices, not just a single office. But they don't want to go to the expense of permanently tying up the real estate. So a virtual office generally allows an individual or a company to have an identity at a physical location, the use of the address, to have the access to the services, clerical, secretarial, administrative support services, telecom services, bandwidth when they're on site, with which to function and run their business, and the technology, obviously, that supports that, but they don't have to permanently inhabit an office. So there's usually a number of hours or days per month that is allotted in whatever virtual office plan they have. And you asked about changes in the industry. We're a reactive industry. We look at what's going on and we try and create products that suit the needs of our customer base. And I think the big change that's going on is mobility in the workplace. We all are quite mobile these days. Large corporations are contracting their employees or their workforce, as it's called now, as rather than they're employing them in huge numbers. Even government is doing this. And so an individual that might be working for even a large Fortune 100 company may be a contract employee and may work at that company 2 days a week, at their home or on the road a day or so a week, or at a virtual office a day or so a week. And they may need a network of offices, which is quite common now, where they have to, from consulting projects, let's say, maybe they have to have an office in 3 different cities. So they take a virtual office instead of a permanent office where they would reside full-time. It's just flexibility, the ultimate flexibility in the workplace.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, too, of some people that are so mobile that they don't even need to drive over to an office location like what you're describing for, 3 hours a day or, half days twice a week. What if what if they just needed a conference room, 4 times a month, twice a month? Do you have drop-in capability that way? Or what if they just needed to get away and work in the office 1 day a week? Do you have those kind of like pay on demand kind of opportunities?
Yes. For our own company, we have about 700 locations in 47 countries around the world that are part of our internal network of companies. And there are business lounges in each of those facilities where people can just drop in. Certainly, there are a variety of conference rooms, meeting rooms, day offices, training rooms, throughout all of this network of facilities where people can make reservations, book directly over the internet, or book an appointment just to stop in and use these facilities. It's very, very common, and it's becoming more common. I won't say every year. I'll say daily. Mm-hmm. This is the way people are working now. And thinking of yourself, when was the last time you had a casual business meeting? And, where was it? Starbucks.
Yep.
Okay. Now, why? Well, because everybody knew where it was. I'll meet you at the Starbucks at the corner of X and Y. And the good news is it's very simple, and you can have a quite casual meeting there. The bad news is you don't know about the 14 children standing in line that just came in from the soccer game, and the music that's going on in the background. And it's a good place to connect somebody, but it's really a pretty bad place to have a serious meeting. So networks of meeting facilities through Alliance Virtual Offices, which is one of our companies, is very, very common now. And it's a growing part of the way that we all work and will work in the future.
So as an example, I know you've got so many, different properties, but can you give us an idea of if you had that drop-in meeting need versus Starbucks, what would something like that run cost-wise? Is it, $1 or is it $4,000?
Oh gosh, I wish it was $4,000.
Yeah. Well, you wish people would pay that. Yeah.
No. Meeting room prices vary. In fact, everything in the world that has to do with real estate varies based on the cost of the dirt underneath the building. So the cost of something in Midtown Manhattan is quite different from the cost of something in Kansas City. But using sort of norms, you'll find meeting room pricing for working offices from about $15 an hour to 40-person, 50-person training rooms up to about $200 an hour. The average meeting that's held impromptu throughout our system is about 4 hours, and the average cost, including coffee, tea, refreshments, whatever is needed in that regard, and the services, access to bandwidth, access to full AV services, is running at about $35 to $40 an hour.
Yeah, if you think about it, many of those, and let's think about that same concept we were talking about, the Starbucks meeting. That's typically less than an hour. You're in and out, and you're chatting, and you're getting whatever you're saying done. But if you could take that eraser and erase all that static and noise and potential for, issues, or, can't find a seat, or got to go outside, it could be a big frustration. So would that be worth $40? Because again, maybe it's not going to be a 4-hour meeting. Maybe it's just an hour.
Yeah, that's quite common. And the other thing you have to remember is the Starbucks is charging a lot for that coffee, as good as it is. And so you're going to probably have consumed 2 cups of coffee while you were there, and that's going to cost you at least $10. And there's 2 of you, so there's $20. And our coffee would have been free, and it would have been Starbucks most likely. So,
and let's even think about this from the prestige, authority, positioning aspect. Which, if you're trying to make an impression on someone or you're meeting with them, which one would make a better first impression? Because as we know, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So which one? Hey, meet me down at the corner of Starbucks, or meet me at my office at 804 whatever street, and they walk in and they're greeted by a human and they see you and they sit down in a conference room and you grab some coffee and it's quiet. Is that worth an extra $30? Because again, you're going to spend, $5-10 on coffee. So man, to me, that that opens up a lot of opportunity for yourself as that entrepreneur to kind of position yourself a little higher than, meet me down at Starbucks.
No, we certainly think so, and the fact that our business in all sectors, our entire industry is growing exponentially over the last 5 or 6 years, and has had very consistent growth ever since we started in the late 70s. The world seems to agree with you in that regard. Certainly large companies, and this is an emphasis that where a lot of large companies will do is they'll have, let's say, a group of salespeople in a region, and the sales manager might have an office at a business center, and they'll bring in all the salespeople from throughout the region for meetings in the business center, where they have very powerful bandwidth, very powerful AV facilities, the ability to really do things, the ability to really get business done, not just chat about doing business. And I think that's where Starbucks is good, to chat about what you might want to do, but it's not a really good place to get it done.
To get down and really get some stuff. Maybe you have, papers or a laptop. I mean, you can't spread out. And to me, I think that is a big piece of it, is how your firm or your offers being viewed. I work in the realm of consulting and helping people, develop that authority positioning and branding, those first impressions. And I think this is a neat add-on to that, because if you walked in and handed someone a business card on floppy paper and you crossed off, phone number because it changed, they don't think much of that. And if you walk in with a nice thick cardstock, business card, handing them a copy of your prospectus or a copy of a book you recently wrote, and you're sitting down in a conference room, they're paying a little bit different attention than if you're at a Starbucks with some kid spilling their hot chocolate on you.
That is absolutely correct. And I saw that kid this morning, by the way.
Yep. And you're still cleaning the hot chocolate off the shoe.
Yes, I'm still
cleaning the hot chocolate. What is the best way then for someone to learn more about the opportunities you have in their location? I was on your website this morning. I put in my zip code, and there's, I'm just outside of Denver, Colorado, and there's like 6, 7, 8 locations, and there was one within about 8 minutes of my house. So I know that you've got so many locations, but what's the best way that people can learn and check it out for themselves?
The very easiest thing to do is to just go onto a website, alliancevirtualoffices.com, pretty simple name, and do a search. And if you find something that's very simple to open an office, in fact, you can open an office of almost anywhere in the world within less than 5 minutes. You can book a conference room anywhere in the world within about 2 minutes. So it's a very, very simple process. And if you get there and you say, gosh, I'm looking for something, but I want to be on the other side of the Bosphorus in Istanbul, not on the European side. I want to be on the Oriental side. It's very simple to give us a call, and we'll search something out for you and organize it for you as well. So things to be done in real time. But what we find with most meetings is they're done with a day or two of advance notice.
Sure.
Just because of people's schedules, and they like to know what their diary looks like and what they're doing. So impromptu, I need to meet right now, is less common than it's what everybody talks about, but it's less common than you would think.
Well, I would even say, let's even close with this thought, which is kind of facetious / comical, but it goes along with what I was saying about that prestige, right? What if you were in the United States and you said that, we have offices in the United States and London, or United States and, pick another country, right?
Sure.
I don't know the price point, but it probably wouldn't be too awfully much to have an international office, and this is your international home office in, Los Angeles, California, for X number of dollars a month to have that. And who knows, maybe you're trying to develop a business out there, and then that would be a place. But I think that that's something that people can take advantage of, where they can say, we have offices in the following, and then that really elevates your brand that much more as well.
Well, it can. And the way people use that quite commonly is for customer service. So let's assume that your office is in Los Angeles, but you have customers in New York or in Boston. You open a virtual office for a couple of $100 a month there with local phone number, local live reception, the ability to meet the customer in your office at that location should the need arise, for any place from $75 to $175 a month. And that higher level of customer service is very attractive to people. The other thing that's very common is, let's assume that we all had a company here in Los Angeles, but we wanted to bid on a project that's in New York City. Well, guess what? If you don't have a business license in New York City, which requires an address, you can't make that bid. So a lot of technical things around business licensing, the ability to bid on civic projects or government projects, all require a local address, a physical local address within that jurisdiction, and that's very common.
And here's another thing. Those mailboxes, et cetera, UPS stores, sometimes, I'm not going to say every time, but sometimes those are not accepted or P.O. boxes in those government kind of contract cases would not be accepted. So you have to look at those where, you might say, I can set up an office and a P.O. box and a, suite number, and maybe that doesn't qualify. So having an actual virtual office would solve that need. So I think that's another huge benefit.
Yeah, there's actually a variety of systems. You start looking at things like credit and corporate credit as an example. If we all formed a corporation together to maybe just hold an asset or something or whatever, and we wanted to have a corporate credit card, it doesn't matter how good our credit might be. If we don't have a physical address with a landline telephone connected to that physical address, the bank will not give us a credit card. A corporate credit card, without a personal guarantee. We can't get a traditional corporate credit card. And there are so many screening and data services now around frauds that it's critically important that people literally have some permanence, because anybody can run any sort of verification they want, and they'll know instantly whether you're at a P.O. box store or a real business address or in a real office.
That's another huge point there as far as that, connection or the access, you hear in the funding world, access to capital. Well, that could impede your access to capital if you don't have those proper things set up. So I think those are just really neat things that I was familiar with the industry, but I learned quite a few little nuggets here, which is really great. So thanks so much for your time, and we'll make sure that we post up your website link in the show notes so that people can click on that and find out for themselves. So, Frank, thank you so much, and it was wonderful getting to know you.
Mike, it's been my pleasure, and anything we can ever do to help, just let us know.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.